Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to Dungeonology, The Expedition. This is a game by Ares Studios and Ludus Magnus Studios, which you probably know a lot of my videos from Nova Yectus, Black Rose Wars, and some of those. So this is a game that's tied into that world, the Nova Yectus Chronicles, and it serves as a precursor to the Nova Yectus games. You don't have to own any of the other ones or have them to play this. We have a bunch of course, like expansions and stuff, so there's going to be a multi-series videos. The first one here, we're just going to go like we normally do with these games. We're going to kind of go through like a overview of the components in the game, as well as kind of running through the base idea of how to play the game and the instructions. Not a full how to play, but at least an idea of what the cards do and what they represent, so when we show them off in the next following videos, you can at least have some idea of what's going on. But what is the game itself? So it's a dungeon crawler of sorts. But instead of going around trying to slay monsters, you're actually trying to learn some stuff. So it says, set in the Renaissance world of Nova Yectus, Dungeonology leads you to the discovery of different civilizations in order to learn their histories and customs. But be careful, the locals will not always be happy with your intrusion. The aim of the game is to explore the dungeon as a scholar, gather as much information as possible about the people who live there. Information yields points, and the scholars collecting the highest number of points will be present the best thesis on the studied race. So there's going to be like a specific race or whatever you're trying to do. Each player is going to have their own board. You have these cubes. You're tracking different stats or different information. And you're trying to get so far to like compete stuff. And you can go aim higher and have a better chance. And you're using other students and other scholars and stuff to kind of help you. But in the meantime, you're also trying to maybe avoid the big bad of the area. So like in this game there's one core big bad, but as you buy expansions you can get other characters as well, and you're going to use different cards to boost up your stuff, to boost up what you can do during your turns and stuff. So some very interesting kind of deck building-ish stuff in there. We have these different categories down here, but you're also going to usually have multiple purposes as well. So yeah, but again, we kind of have the dungeon crawling aspect of it, because as you see on the map, there's these tiles, or on the pictures, there's tiles that will be kind of semi-randomly generated. There's some that go towards certain levels, so you can't get into certain difficulties too early, but they're not going to always be in the exact same order every single time. So this is going to add some interesting stuff in there. So couple of things I want to point out right before we start is there's the original rulebook which came out, which seemed to have, it's not a bad rulebook. It does explain how to play the game, but there was some things in there that got missed or were a little confusing for some people. So when they, the way the game came out is they released the Kickstarter stuff, the Rocca Civetta expansion box. Came out later, like a wave 2. They re-upgraded and introduced the rules to the game, fixing some of the stuff, and doing a couple of things. One big thing they did in there was they explained the basis of the game. Here's the simplest way to play the game. Then they added advanced rules, and they took some of the stuff out of the original learning how to play the game, and they threw them in there, such as if you want to add the boss, so you don't have to play with the boss. And they added some of the other panic cards and some of the other different like modular effects, as they're going to call them. And then we of course get into the stuff with the expansion and how those work. So yeah, it's very interesting how they did all that. And kind of like why they didn't necessarily do that first. Like the end of here, it says stop, you don't need to get further. Once you finish the game, you can use the advanced rules in the next chapter. And then they're all going to be in orange. And then it has, sorry, let me hop into this page here. This is the Rocca Civetta, the Kickstarter expansion goals. It says, rules for the new Elements game: independent characters based on a colored flag containing the chapter. Standard rules are for items to be added to all Dungeonology games. Advanced are optional rules can be made the game more experienced or profound and competitive. Independence, optional rules require you to use Certain advanced rules indicate a description of each dependent rule in the game. In the final part of the matter, there are rules to play solitaire, challenging the terrible Omega Boss, and playing the dungeon campaign mode. So you have a solo mode, you can fight against a harder boss, as well as you can also play campaign. So lots of cool stuff that you can get in there. This is also available on their web app, so if you don't own you didn't buy the Kickstarter box that don't feel like you don't have access to this, you can go on their website. But yeah, I'll have some stuff added in here, such as saying like, oh, here's some new things you can add into the game, some tokens and stuff for the things. But if you want the new boss, it's dependent upon playing as the boss rule. But then they have new stuff like new research cards you can add, but new zones which are dependent upon playing certain modes of the game. So yeah, very, very cool that they added that and changed that a bit. So I kind of just wanted to point that out. So I'll probably maybe like review that book, use this book as a guide for what we're going to look over for how the game is played. I'm going to tilt my camera down a little bit more here. I'm going to move this box off to the side. Again, this isn't a full how to play the game. I just kind of want to go through the basics of the rules. So everyone kind of has an idea of what's going on. So we have a bunch of different cards in there. I want to get to the object of the game, and we'll kind of look at that first, and we'll come back and we'll look at the other parts of the game. So, Dungeonology, players control a scholar from the University of Rocca Civetta, and I'm probably pronouncing these names wrong, so I do apologize. When exploring a dungeon, in an attempt to discover the secret dwellers who live there. The scholar will not want to disturb the dungeon dwellers, but will need to collect information about them represented by information cubes. So we'll have all the different cubes will represent information. Each player will have their own board, which will have some different symbols on. We'll look at them in a minute. But you have one that corresponds to each colored cube, just kind of like living, fighting, treasure, stuff like that for each different color. In the mission, scholars will be helped by the students of the university, preparing for the extreme sacrifice of helping their scholar mentor collect important information. So we're going to get a bag of little miniatures. They are scholars. We have some red ones that are for a different mode. Well, they're for this mode, but they're ones that disrupt you, rather. Unfortunately, hidden amongst the nest of students are advocates of the Omega congregation, the red ones we were just talking about, will try and rule the scholars' exploration by alerting the dungeon dwellers. If that is not enough, other university scholars will compete for gathering information in a not very sporting way. This is your other players trying to maybe steal information from you or sabotage you in some way. The aim of the game is to earn more points than other players. Earn information cubes by collecting while exploring zones, making up the dungeon, collecting up information cubes. Also allows scholars to earn stars. Submit the thesis. When you have enough information cubes and at least 2 stars and avoid jinxes, it will give scholarly Omega students. So that's kind of the basis of what we're trying to do. Trying to collect cubes, enough cubes, and have stars in the game, and we earn stars by collecting enough cubes. So once you earn certain parts, you eventually earn enough stars to be able to end the game. So, let's take a look at what all the components are, and then we can kind of head into the actual, what we're doing. So we're going to have our scholar boards here, our note boards. So each one's kind of depicted as a version of a different character. They have a little color up in the top, so yellow, blue, purple, and red. But one kind of corresponds to each one of the miniatures we're going to have. So we'll look at those in a little bit more and go through who these characters are in one of the following videos. But these are people from she's doing a gangster lean there, from the Nova Yectus world, so very cool. But each one corresponds to a board, but it's not that important to have the exact player on the board, because all of them are the exact same. Otherwise than that, other than the little pictures on them, they'll do the exact same thing. There's nothing special or unique about each board. So on there, one side. Now there's a little spot here that's showing nothing on there. Because what we will have is a sheet of tokens. So each token will have these little counters here to keep track of some of these numbers, and they'll snap onto the backs of those. I just haven't printed out. We also have some stuff for the dungeons. We'll have some stun tokens we can use, some discovery tokens, some different blocks for the dungeon when we're playing them on the map, as well as stairs to move between each one. Blocks prevent you from walking from one area to another. In case like you rotate a tile and it has a wall where a door would be. And then some traps we can play. And then if we flip these, they're kind of all double-sided. Some have pictures on one side for the traps, some have some on the other side. So cool, we're going to get all those. We will have a group of character cards, so each character, here are our 4 characters: Sophia, Rebecca, Valerio, and Vicencio. So if you're familiar with Nova Ejectus, these are the 4 main characters. So this is kind of them out exploring as younger people, not necessarily children. They're college-age students, maybe. They're scholars working at that, trying to become, this is what they do before they jump into, they're getting their theses, they're becoming full-on adventurers before they jump into the Nova Ejectus games, like Renaissance and stuff, and actually go around and fight everybody. So now these guys are asymmetrical. They each have their own different abilities. They have different stats on the bottom, which will line up to their boards. So if like we put Sophia on here, she will have different amount of scholars, hand size, speed, stuff like that. And if you throw up Rebecca, she will have different stuff as well. Then they also have a unique second side. They can eventually become angered, and they become a little bit more mean, and they have some extra special things. And there's some cool rules that have to do with that. And you'll kind of maybe be flipping back and forth between them a little bit. So very, very interesting there. We also have a boss. So this is our only boss, the Korosumlakis, and we do have a miniature for him as well. So he gets to be on the board. And then he has an alternate side as well. So if you want to make them a little bit harder, you can play against Drunk Lacus. So you have 2 different kind of bosses in the game. Have some different stuff that they're going to do. The big core of the game are the tiles. So all the dungeons are going to have various cubes here on there you can get. Traps and other things you're going to interact with. The exit points. So each one kind of has a thing on the back. It's going to be either a level 1, 2, or 3. This is the starting camp tile. So they'll have different sides in there. So you're kind of going through each one. So you're kind of going through the level 1, which is like the forest area. And then you can jump into level 2, which is like more of like a civilized camp area. They're kind of like these ones. And you have little symbols on there as well. Say 2 and what number it is. And then if you get to level 3, you're fighting in, or searching around more in like a dungeon. And what's cool about some of these later, they get certain colors. So you can have to have certain things to pass through each one. And it's lots of different cool artwork. And we're going to go over these a little bit more in detail in one of the next videos. But yeah, so very cool. We get some options there. Then we have the starting camp, of course. We just start here. Have a couple of different exits. But yeah, you're going to run these together, but you might end up running these 2 together. So you can see, yeah, lots of areas connect together left and right. But you could get something like, I think lots of these first ones, yeah, like we connect these 2 together. The top exit goes together, but then the bottom one doesn't. So then you take one of them block tokens that we saw earlier, and you put that there to show that you can't exit or enter through that area. That's just what some of those do. It's a very, very cool there. We have our base camp, or our campus board as they call it. This is going to store some of our different decks and some of that. We're also going to put some of our little miniatures on there, our scholars, as we gather them. So if we grab some of these guys, and they're going to end up being put on here. And we might get some of these red guys in here too occasionally. But yeah, these store some extra ones in there. And you can only store so many. But some of the other cards that get placed in there is kind of like the central board for everyone to use. We have a badging for all our cubes. Or for our university badge, sorry, not for our cubes. I think we dump our scholars in here, actually, because then you don't know if you're going to pull out, am I going to pull out 3 of them? I pulled a red one, or do I not pull the red one? Because you're kind of trying to avoid them, so that's pretty interesting there. We have our randomize, or our alert cards, so you can play some different levels of difficulty. So easy, medium, hard, and the introductory game, which is a little bit easier, which will kind of determine when the red guys will show up and what they do, and different things you get to activate. You saw there's some different numbers on there. On the back side, you're just going to have just a reminder of how some of the game works. We have some panic cards you can use in the advanced mode if you'd like to add some more difficult to the game. So you have 2 regular ones and 1 for the boss. So if you want to just make the game a little bit more tricky, difficult, we have some more of that. So there's lots of different stuff in here to keep the game fresh and doing different stuff. We have randomizer deck. So this is going to kind of tell us what direction certain things go, and various things are going to ask us to randomize or check something. So you'll flip over like the top card here, and it might tell you go to the purple one, go left. This might tell you to leave through this exit on the bottom here. It might tell you to look for a purple cube. You look at like the next one. This one here is going to tell you look for the blue one. Might tell you to go north, and then, or if the secondary would go left, it's going to tell you to do this. It's going to kind of randomize how certain things move around the board. The boss, for example, various things might say like, move a cube here, do this. It's going to have all this different information. Some might be relevant for some might be relevant for other. Like it might just ask for the player, which then you just look for the color symbol. Might ask for a cube, just tell you which cube it does. So that's kind of a neat little mechanic there. For 17, we have in-turn cards. We can get special extra characters to help us out, give us special abilities. So yeah, just some neat stuff there. And the expansions will add more of these guys. You have just extra little asymmetrical powers to play around with. For this, we have Jinx cards, which we're mentioning. These are the Omegas, which are the red guys. They're just a competing scholar or group of school, like the higher tier of the school. They're kind of trying to mess with you. Like, if you're, like, at the bottom, you're trying to learn, like, you're freshmen, essentially. These are, like, one of the, what do you want to call them? Houses, like the Omega House or Alpha House, and we have stuff like that. So these guys are just coming in trying to do bad things to you, give you amnesia, vow of sincerity, notes on fire, just to mess with your stats and make you do different stuff. So again, just little like weakness or vulnerability type cards. So very interesting there. We have these cards here, which are our clan cards. So in the starting game, we are trying to find information on one of these 3 groups of people, either the Blood Worshippers, Chanters of Gaia, or the Dancers of Pandemonium. And again, as you buy expansions, you'll get more races to look for. So this is definitely a game where expansions are really cool, because you could just add some of the extra. You have new characters, you're going to have new bosses to fight, you're going to have new enemies to fight, new things. And you kind of mix and match, and it makes for a very modular game depending on what you want to do. Then the last big group of decks we have are these guys right here, which are our trick cards. So all the same backs, because they're all going to get mixed together at some point. But they're going to be different types of like groups. They're going to let you, just basically what's going to let you do different things in the game. They're going to give like movement things. They're going to have different things. You have like caution. We have like exploration cards, which kind of focus on movement stuff. But this can also help you. Like we have summoning the guard. Placing traps down. They're kind of like the different schools of sorts or different learning things. We have subterfuge, which lets you kind of sneak around a little bit more. Might be able to let you get by unseen and hidden. Like blow from behind. We have magic abilities, which are going to let you change cubes around and do some other crazy stuff there. Stealth test. We have notoriety, which lets you get more scholars to help, more students to help you out. So if you're trying to get more students, you're going to grab some of those. You have social, kind of lets you get some more card drawing. get more actions going. And then we have some just kind of generic ones, which will just help you just in general. They have a bunch of different abilities you can use on here. You might use the top one, might use the bottom one, might use just the middle portion of the card. And lots of the cards have multiple effects. So those are our basics of what all of our components are. And then, of course, we have our cheat sheets here. So again, zone effects, you have different zones, you have different things you're going to have to do. Notes of tomes, you're going to get some stuff there, your passage tokens. On the other side, it's going to kind of explain your turn phases. So let's kind of just take a look at this before we hop more into the rulebook. So phase 1, thesis submission. Then we're going to have a rest phase. Skip the rest of the turn, so if you need to just take a break. We have the movement phase. Big one's going to be the action phase. You can study, do espionage, play a trick card, play a zone effect, or end your turn. Some different combos. So studying, you're going to test your stealth to see if you weren't alerted. Successes and failures, going to do some different things. There's just some icons. We saw these in some of the cards. Might be like drawing number of students, sacrificing students to things, gaining stealth value, being alerted. Some other different things in there. So very, very cool. A lot of components. That's one thing that might maybe push people away from this game, is you see how much stuff there is. And that's always an issue with games that have a ton of components. It's because you're going to start seeing all this stuff and you're going to be like, this is too much. It's too much things. It's too much. But when it kind of starts getting broken down and it's like, okay, I'm only using this at this point. I'm only using this at this point. It's not so bad. So let's see if we had like a picture of a play area here. If they show one. I love it when they show play areas and they're not doing it in this book. For some reason. So yeah, game setup is pretty simple. You're going to grab your character, put stuff down. It's going to show you how many students you get, set your card to 0. We have this deck randomizer we kind of went through. Game randomly chosen effects required. Game will randomize. Says 1 is a target color of the color triangle. 2 is a direction, so it might be what direction something has to move. 3 is a passageway. Might tell you to go which way. If the passage not exists, then do the second one. Information, I'll tell you what type of cube to grab. For convenience, recommend that randomizers are managed by the same player throughout the game, just so that way you're not having to pass this whole deck around. Because just as randomized, just one person has to pick up and say what it does. Setup of the game is pretty simple. I'm not going to get into too much of it. Take your note boards, grab your... Each player chooses or randomly draws scholar cards, places on their noteboard, so whichever character you want to play. Take your number of students, shuffle the randomizer, shuffle the trick deck. Each player draws a number of trick cards based on their turn. First player gets 1, second player gets 2, so on and so forth. Campus boards that across. Then they add in the advanced rules. If you want to play with the boss, you can set that up. Selecting an alert card you're going to place. You're going to place your alert card on the board. It's going to kind of just give you your limits on how long it's going to take to do stuff. Draw a clan card so you know who you're fighting, who you're looking for, trying to find out about. Shuffle the jink deck. Set your decks all aside. Basically all that general stuff. Like have everything sorted out. I don't know why they didn't show a full... board being laid out. I was trying to see. So, like, yeah, here's the original rulebook. They're kind of showing what's all laid out again. You kind of see you're going to have, like, your little mini decks over here, your trick card decks here, what ready to go, your dungeon already built. So just kind of everything sort of laying out in its different piles, of course. This does kind of break down some of the stuff in here as well, but we're going to kind of just stick with the more advanced book. So it's just starting decks. Scholar start the zone can be extinguished because that is a thing. When you're in the zone, it's a safe zone, so you do not need to fear anything. Cannot be a subject of game effects, cannot be targeted even by a boss, cannot be selected for randomization. Trick cards, cannot play trick cards, can only carry out by explorations. You only basically move around the board, which is, so you got one spot you can kind of hang out in. We have all these different stacks down here on our card. all over the board. So we're going to kind of look at some of them. So each character has their own skill, can be activated as many times as you like. If it has a lightning icon, it can be activated during a player's turn, so you have different effects down there. Initial students, number of students you start with. The hand value at the end of the phrase, if a player has a number of trick cards in their hand, has less than its value, she draws from the trick card until she has that many cards. Speed during the turn, how many points used to explore. Intelligence, maximum number of information cube can gain during a single studied action. So some characters can gain more than others. Some are going to be faster than others. Stamina, when it has a number of stun tokens equal its value, they are forced to execute the rest activity. So some again can take more damage. And then we have knowledge combo. If at any time for a single moment, Scholar has a combination of information cubes on his noteboard, he immediately gains one knowledge token and places it on a knowledge slot. So yeah, we have like for example, Valerio here is going to start with four guys, can have 4 hand size, can move 4, can only take 2 cubes at a time, but can take 4 damage, and if he ever has a yellow and a blue, he gets a little token. And you can put them up in your eye up here for your knowledge slot. And then the information cube just keeps track of each one. Each column indicates the points granted by the information cubes, the first visible number starting with the bottom. So you gain bonuses for each one. Then we have stars on there. When a scholar reaches number of stars on the left of the column, they gain a star. Scholar has a star, as long as there's an information cube next to it. If the information cube is lost, she also loses that star. The number of stars in a player's possession affect aspects of the game, such as thesis and exalted scholar rules. Stars can be silver or gold bordered by different colors. These are detailed only used in game expansions, so we don't have to worry about that now. Scholar color effects require you to choose a random color. That was our little arrow on the icon. And study bonus, arrow left column are gain and loss just like stars. Each time a scholar earns an arrow, they increase their study bonus. And likewise, one loses an arrow, they lose it by 1. So, they have these little arrows down here so they can go up and down a little bit quicker on some of them. And then we have exalted scholars. When a scholar earns a star, all scholars who have fewer stars than her become exalted. The scholars are flipped over, and the new skill is showing on the side. Exalted scholar remains in a state, she becomes a scholar of 1 or has the most stars. So that was our reverse side. So basically, if you have Rebecca and Sophia gains more stars, Rebecca will now flip over to the other side, which gives her slightly different stats. Now she has a 6 for a hand size, and she has a 4 and a 3 for her how many cubes and how much damage she can take. Plus she has some new abilities as well. Maybe upgraded, maybe brand new, and that's going to be the same for every other character. They gain some new stuff. So basically, if you're falling behind, your character goes into an accelerated mode, an exalted mode as it is, and it gives you a chance to kind of help play catch-up. So that way, you don't ever have to truly feel like you're falling completely behind, like, oh no, they did this, and they had a really good turn. Well, now your character gets boosted, and then you're boosted until you get ahead. So even if another character gets in front, you still have that chance to up. It doesn't just last for 1 turn. We have some stun and knowledge tokens. Stun tokens. Moment scholar's stun token is sacrifice one of the students to avoid getting hit. So you just spend your little guys to... And I just threw him on the floor. Take damage for you. Sacrifice students. Kind of funny. Scholar has a maximum of stun equal to his stamina. Scholar has stun tokens to his stamina will continue to play normally. Cannot use any game effects required to take additional stun tokens. At the beginning of their turn, has a stun token equal to their stamina. They have to perform the rest action. If they ever have higher, they have to just discard any excessive ones. And we have knowledge tokens, can be attained in 2 ways. So scholars earn a token to freely examine the clan card for the rest of the game. Be careful not to reveal it to other players. Once gained, the knowledge token can no longer be lost for the rest of the game. And if all scholars participate in the game, the knowledge token of the clan can be revealed. So your clan that you're trying to discover has different stats you're trying to reach. And you can kind of keep that information hidden to yourself so you don't know what you're all trying to do. So you have various students. Many game effects require students to be drawing from the bag. The effects indicated by the little icon showing. Draw the indicated number of students. Place all gray students in the free spaces on the bonfire if all spaces are filled. The drawing student must be placed in the reserve. If an Omega student's drawing, you have to do the mean Omega stuff. So they go on this time card, basically. Puts it on the top space there of the alert card if there are no spaces. The game enters the final phase. So like this one, you have 4 spots. So in the medium game, it kind of gives you a time limit of pulling students out. Is eventually you're going to, if you're not spending more students and getting rid of them and putting them back into the bag, you're going to keep drawing these red ones more often. It's going to end the game quicker. So it's not just play until you have enough stars to solve the game, and whoever has the most points. You might reach an end game, you might get to where like everyone's trying to just book it at the end. The alert bonus when this is added about dungeon zones for the rest of the game, so it's going to add some more danger to the thing. And then these 2 columns represent the number of students to recover from the reserves, so you can add some more characters back in there. The 4 alert cards allow us to select the dungeon difficulty. Number of players also you can multiply by the number of students. After players gain more experience, at the point of H in the game setup, they will also be able to choose a player level. So you can add some more stuff in there to add more students or change the difficulty. Alright, so what do we actually do on the game turns? During your turns, you have several options to do. One of 3 big activities. Rest. Can return to the starting zone, recover from the fatigue of the expedition. If you have stun tokens, you can get rid of them. You must take this action. Submit the thesis. Return to the starting zone, attempt to deliver their thesis, trying to win the game. Or at least bring it towards the end. And explore the dungeon, trying to unravel the secrets. If you're starting zone, you must perform this. So if you're doing a rest, you choose to perform this action, but if you have stun tokens, you have to do it. Move your skull to the starting zone, discard all stun tokens, discard all jinx in your possession. If you have fewer students in your starting value, you can take some from the reserve if available. Discard any number of trick cards, optional, and then draw if you have the equal number. So kind of like, hey, I got some bad cards, refresh, I can get rid of some stuff, gain some more students. It's kind of nice because you don't have to spend, like, oh, I'm five tiles away, I have to spend 5 tiles to go back there. You can just choose, hey, I'm going to go back there for free. Submit a thesis. Must have 2 stars to carry out the activity. Move your scholar to the starting zone. So this one you have to, you just gotta move your scholar over there. Consult your clan card. Be careful not to reveal to other players. Gain the knowledge token if you haven't already. Count the points on your noteboard, applying the modifiers indicated on the clan card. Do not add or subtract bonuses from different sources in this calculation, as such those indicated on the interns or jinx. At this point, 2 things can happen. Success. You have scored equal or greater than the thesis target score indicated your clan. Reveal the clan card to everyone face up. Add the bonus points from other sources to your score, such as the anchor card, extract penalties from jinx and stuff. So initially, you're just checking what you have on your board versus what's on the clan card, and then for the final game, you're going to add some extra points. Add your score to the bonus points. Whoever delivered the thesis first for 10 points, second for the second, 5 for the third, and third for the fourth. Announce your final score to the other players. Move your scholar from the game. You don't want to participate in the game, and you cannot come to pretty game. So basically, once you turn your thesis, you are done for the game. So you've added up your points. You've gotten a bonus for entering it first, and then you can add whatever you currently had, and then you can just go ahead and you're done with the game. If you have a lower score than the thesis, you're a donkey. You ignore the whole Academy of College of Rocca Civetta with your carelessness. With your tap in your hand, you go back to studying. Put your clan deck back in the campus space down. Draw a jinx card immediately, and then place in reserve the most valuable information cube on the noteboard. And then your turn ends. So you lose your most valuable cubes, the hardest ones to get. So here's a clan card, for example. B is the target's thesis score. Scholar must have reached his value derived from information cubes on your note board. So if we look at our note board here, like this guy, we have to have 30 points. So you have 26, or you can get up to 26 if you have all of them maxed out. But right, so if you have like 10 here, a 12 here, an 8 here, a 10 here, a 6 there, so you can kind of add up each different one you need to get to try and get up to that 30 points. But initially, you don't know how many it is until you find out and you get a look at your card. So, like, right off the bat, you might be kind of playing blindly. And then score modifiers. Each individual information cube on a noteboard must have its value modified by the shown modifiers. If, for example, the noteboard has the 4 militia cubes, red, which is worth 3 points. So if we look down here, militia, we have our has 4 militia cubes, 3 points each, so 1, 2, 3, 4, so 3, 6, 9. So it goes up by 3 each time. It gives us 9 points. And the clan card of the Blood Worship of +2. Each cube will have a final point of 5. 3 plus 2 for each. Allowing the player to score 20 points instead of 12. So yeah, very cool. But then they could have minuses on there as well, so they could mess up your score towards the end of the game. Alright, so I think exploration is a big crux of the game. Movement, action, and end of turn. During this build, except for the end of turn phase, you can play your trick cards. Your opponent can do it too if they have the lightning bolt. No limit on the trick cards you can play. For the movement phase, your scholars have a speed points you can spend. During this phase, move around the dungeon into new zones. You spend points on to move the adjacent linked zones. Draw a zone from the current floor level at 1, 2, or 3. Or at any time. During this phase, when you have no more speed points, you can spend 1. You can move into an action phase. You can spend additional speed points by playing exploration trick cards. So you get them, you have extra movement. After the movement phase is over, you can no longer move your scholar by using speed points of the scholar, but you can use other game effects, such as have exploration cards to move during other players' phases. Then some zones have different effects in there. So you have different cubes you'll be on there you're trying to collect. The dungeon zone, spaces for information cubes on the bottom down here. B is the alert value, so it's a little eyeball. Shown there. Scholar must equal or exceed the stealth test to collect cubes in the study zone. So it's whether you get spotted by whoever might be in that zone. C's are passages, can have anywhere from 1 to 8 passages. D's are your danger zone effects. If you want to use the advanced rules, you can skip those to begin with if you like. The only consider a stair effect if you do not use this rule. You always have to choose the stairs because that's going to another level. Dungeon icon, this indicates the clan type living in the dungeon and the zone. Fawns allow you to identify as panic cards that are compatible with it. So it might have different symbols in there. The floors and numbers show you just what number you're on, and doors are entries to the zones. You gotta have at least one information cube of the same color. So if it has a purple one, you can't go in or out of it unless you have at least a purple. If it's purple and red, you'd have to have one of those different colors. So it kind of restricts you sometimes. So yeah, you need to get stairs. Basically, this I'm just kind of skip through this real quickly. You find a token here. It's gonna be place your board on there. If it doesn't line up with an exit, you place a little block on there. And some of these other ones. And then if you have a stairway, it just lets you go up to the next area. So this is kind of showing that I am going from, I placed a new tile down here, right? So I have green and green. They kind of walk one to the other. But if I want to go from a green to another zone, I have to put a stairway, and I'm putting a block here because they're not the same level of floors. So it's kind of showing that you can only go sometimes one different direction. And they're showing how they link up. They don't always have to be necessarily left and right. You can put them kind of in the triangle shape like that. You just can't put them like that. Where they're like way off to one side because there's no connecting spot. If there's a connecting spot there, you could line it up like that. That would be perfectly fine. Just you have to line a door up with at least one other door. And then any ones with connecting doors are linked together. So very, very cool. Then we have some icons on all our trick cards. I'm not going to go through all of these, but they kind of have green are good cards, gaining students, gaining speed, drawing more trick cards. Yellow are danger cards. You have draw cards from the university, which is, potential grab a red one. Red are bad cards, sacrificing students, gaining stun tokens, discarding cards. Black are stealth cards, so you're either going to add stealth or add the alert, or see divination, and then the timing, so you have instant or reaction cards. And then here's just a bunch of different rules explaining how each one of these different symbols that show up might work. Like, what's 1 mean? Expiration 1, you get 1 extra movement point. What's this do? I'm not going to go through all those in there, but we have a bunch of different ones. So these are trick cards. Allows scholars to interact with various ways in the dungeon. The deck of trick cards run out, shuffle the discard and form the deck again. There are 6 types of trick cards in the game. For example, exploration allows scholars to move more. Some scholars use specific trick cards in their ability, such as Rebecca with magic. They have a bonus value on them for B. So B on here will show a bonus value up at the top corner. You need to declare your stealth value for a test. C is the game main and the effect. So C is just kind of what the card does. And then D is now auxiliary effect. One of 2 effects allow you to manipulate the rules of the game. So these generic ones have 2, regular ones have a regular one. So I play old friend, social, I can use this ability, or I can potentially use it for this ability down here instead. So you get some different options in there as well. So what do you do here on the action phase? You can study espionage, main effect of a trick card action or action zone effect. Study, try to collect certain... we'll just jump into these. Study as a stealth test. When you attempt the studied action to collect information cubes, you must perform a stealth test against the alert value. Check the alert value in the zone you are in to the possible alert bonus on the last Omega student placed. Indicate the number of information or cubes you wish to collect, starting from 1 from the furthest to the left. Indicate 1 to a maximum equal to your intelligence value. So if you only have 2, you can only collect two cubes, no matter if there's 6 on there. Who cares? These are the cubes you attempt to collect based on how many you indicated. The zone alert will increase by +1 for each if you indicated 2, 3 if you indicated 3, 6 if you indicated 4. So they're going to get harder to do as you try and steal things. I was trying to see if they had... And I just threw that on the ground, which is great. Zone will increase by 1 if you have 1 if you indicate 2, 3 if you indicate 3, 6 if you indicate 4 if you indicate 5. I was hoping there's maybe a rule thing that kind of stated that really quick, but I didn't see one. There probably is, though. Play as many trick cards as desired from your hand, at least 1. Take into consideration only their bonus values. So here you're just adding for this number up at the top for these to try and add up your stealth number. The total obtained for the stealth value once declared cannot be changed by any further cards. Now the player you left play as many trick cards as desired by effects on their cards with the lightning bolt to try and stop your opponents. Use your cards to attempt to raise the value of the alert in the zone. If they love you, they may try and help you by increasing your stealth value, but don't hope too much. So they could try and help you out. Once the tour on the table is finished, up to you to have the last say. At this point, check for success or failure. So let's see what that kind of looks like here. So for example, Sophia wishes to collect information to I3. She wants to attempt to study action. She needs to reach a result of 4 or more in this zone. So it has 3 right there. And there's a +1 for the student penalty, so that equals 4. So we could collect 2 information cubes thanks to their intelligence to 2, but the alert value increased from 1 to 5. By 1 to 5. So instead of going up 1 just for the penalty, it would increase up to 5 total. So she doesn't really want to do that. So she plays 3 trick cards, adding their bonus values, declaring a stealth value of 4. So now she has enough to win. Another scholar plays an auxiliary effect with subterfuge, which increases the value to 6, so it adds it by 2. The other scholars don't decide to play now. Sophie has 1 chance left to succeed in her stealth. She plays an auxiliary effect card, giving a scholar to draw a trick card from the hand and adds bonus value to her stealth. She draws a 2, reaching a value of 6. Her test is successful. She collects all the civilization cards. So basically, you play cards to try and boost up all your stats, and then each other player can play stuff to try and manipulate one direction or the other, to which then you get one last chance to try and fix that. So if you succeed, great, you got your cubes. You fail, you get a stun token. You must immediately draw students from the university, so you have a hopefully not get another Omega student. We also have espionage stealth tests. When you attempt an espionage action, steal information cubes from your opponent. So this is the same idea, except instead of taking it from the board, you're trying to steal something your opponent has, which could help you bonus your stuff up you need, but also might reduce them, might keep them from getting stars and stuff like that. First, you must sacrifice the student. The brave soul will sacrifice herself by distracting your opponent, hopefully giving up time to steal his research. Choose a single information cube present on their board. And they only target the opponent in the same zone or an adjacent link zone. This is a cube you'll try to steal. Determine the target's alert by adding the value of their selected information cube to the number of students that the target has. This value must reach or succeed. It's just going to show on the bottom how hard the cube is, so like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus the number of students they have. Play as many trick cards as you want, choosing, because their students are watching out for you. And then the harder the cube, the more treasured the information is, the harder they're going to have to get it. So yeah, basically just do the exact same thing. Declare the stealth value once it's declared, you no longer modify your bonuses again. Now, the target scholar may play as many trick cards as I provided that fact. The target player needs to play one card at a time, raising its effect as much as possible. Now, the one difference is here is the other players don't get to play stuff in this mode, so they don't get to help or hurt you. And you just go back and forth. You both declare you don't want to add any more cards. This test only involves the 2 exceptions. Without exception, may play trick cards. Then success or failure. You succeed, you get those cubes. If you fail, stun, draw a student. So, yeah, very interesting there. So, showing the same exact idea there. So, she has a skill of 3. She has no students, so she doesn't have anything left to do. So, she plays 2 cards. Thanks to her rogue ability, she performs a divination 1 twice, drawing the excellent fate card, the bonus value of 5, and a second trick card, the value of 1, giving her a stealth value of 8. Could respond by playing trick cards himself, but again, such a high result, he decides not to respond. She played an 8, and it's not worth him playing a bunch of cards trying to stop it. She just let him have that 1 token. Alright, then we get to the end of the game. There's some other advanced rules in here as well. The first thesis is successfully submitted. The game continues for all scholars who have not yet submitted the thesis. In each new turn, the player who first submitted the thesis takes an Omega student from the reserve, or, if not available, takes it from the university. The player plays the Omega student on an empty space on the alert card. If there are no free spaces on the alert card, the last turn of the game begins and you move to the game scoring. The Omega student is drawing and there are no more free places to place it on the alert card. The game ends at the beginning of the next turn of one of the current player to move to game scoring. And then if there are no information to collect in the dungeon and no new zones to be placed, the game ends immediately and you move on to the game scoring. So that's the 3 different ways it can end. As soon as someone submits their thesis, everyone else has a limited number of turns left to go ahead and try and submit their own thesis. Luckily, because you don't have to use move action to get back, you can just jump back in there. You just need to perform an action to do something and then be like, hey, I need to jump back and try and submit my thesis. So hopefully by the time the first person does, the other people might have 10 stars or 2 stars. They just need to go submit it. They just might not, or they need to maybe gain 1 thing and then go back and do it. So yeah, they don't need to play it. You only get a few more rounds. It's you technically eliminate yourself by submitting it, but you get more points. But nobody can then affect you or up your stuff. Yeah, their opponents have a couple extra turns to maybe do some extra stuff, but they might also not succeed in time. Only students who successfully submit the thesis can participate in the endgame. So that's the big kicker. If you're way behind for some reason, unfortunately, it means you're probably just going to lose. That's maybe the only downside of the game, is that yes, you get that exalted mode to help you catch back up, but if you're like 3 cubes away from getting your second star, you might not have enough time in 3 turns or less, depending on how many Omega students have already been drawn, to be able to do that. So you might just basically be automatically eliminated from the end of the game. So it just might be what it is, unfortunately. Hopefully, though, you've been playing enough, you've been spreading your things around enough that you shouldn't be at that point. The points remit, all players that participate add a points of information given on a noteboard, containing with all your modifiers from clan cards. Bonus intern cards, if you're using main effect rule, other sources in the game, subtract against penalties. And then you just see whoever wins. Whoever submitted. So in the event of a tie, the following criteria is, first submitted, then students. So basically that's it. You're trying to go around the board collecting tokens using your cards as either movement or different actions and stuff. Trying to find out the different numbers for each of these characters. So we got like a 30, a 28, and a 25. They have different pluses and minuses for each one. So sometimes learning which one, you might be like, oh, cool. So I might want to gain more of this I don't have to have as many of these because I could gain more points. It doesn't make sense to necessarily max some of these out because you might not get too many extra points out of them. But yeah, so very, very, like this is a -2, so this might not even be worth collecting because you only have 2 spots on the board, so if it automatically -2, you're just going to have no points for that one at all. So it might not be worth wasting your time if you reveal him at some point, that's not what you need to do. And then the whole thing is, trying to collect this stuff while avoiding things, stealing from other players. Again, you can stop the game right there and not play anymore if you don't want to. But if you like to continue, there are some advanced rules. And I'm not going to spend too much time on these, hopefully. With bosses, no dungeon worthy of a name without a boss to face inside. Bosses will appear early in the game and hunt down scholars trying to drive them out of his domain. Danger zones. Each zone will have positive and negative effects, so scholars could exploit them for their own purposes, or will put most unwary in trouble. Secret passages, trap, teleports, makeshift camps are some of the things scholars will face. Maximum alert, Omega Scouts will not simply end games. With an introduction of a very dangerous panic card, the inhabitants of the dungeon are already alerted. They'll set in motion apocalyptic events will lead to the final big bang, and main effects make most of the trick cards by introducing multiple new effects to the game. Each main effect will scholars incredible moves capable of situations. So like the first time you're playing, you can ignore this center part of the card. You're either playing it for the special ability, quick ability down here, or you're playing it for your bonuses up at the top. But then you can later add some of these other ones in there if you want to add more additional effects. Like this one could give you some different options. Again, we have like doing more things, exchange your information cube with different things. So you can kind of limit some of the stuff your game gets to do. Don't play with bosses. Don't use the extra zones on the extra cards up here that add extra things other than the stairs. Just to make the game simpler to learn how to play. And then you can add those things as you want. Add just the zone thinging. Then add in the stuff with the cards. Then add in the bosses. And kind of add them however you want to do. So it could make the game very interesting. So the boss is we're just going to kind of do this as a quickie one. So we kind of know what's in here. It has 2 different versions. And game expansions are many other bosses can be added during Dungeonology. The effect added to Scholar Enter Zone containing the first time they're given. In fact, during the same turn, the boss effect can only be activated once. Remember, the zone effects must always be activated starting from left to right one. If the boss is not in your dungeon, you add them in there. So bosses have a couple of things on there. Name and profile, alert modifier. So the presence of the boss increases the alert value in there, so it's going to make them harder to find steel cubes if the boss is in there. The sighting. This effect allows the boss to appear in the dungeon. Activation effect allows the boss to interact with the scholars and the dungeon, and the encounter or the boss enters a zone containing 1 or more scholars, this effect is activated. So if we grab this guy's card, for example, he's going to have an alert of 3. Sighting last appears in a zone where the boss effect was activated. Activation, he moves 3 spaces without letting him retrace his steps if he stops and meets his color, or he must retrace his steps or encounter. Each of his color takes a stun token. The other side adds a lot more different stuff in there. He can get some random stuff in there for the encounter as well. So some different ways to play as him, which is really cool. A boss in this ball is real. Boss must make a choice. If a boss must make a choice not covered by his card, he has, basically an encounter says how he gets to move around. His activation, sorry. Boss moves in such a way as trying as many interactions as possible. So there's some different stuff in there. So he's just going to make the game harder. We have danger zones. Using these rules, the zones will contain one or more zone effects that drastically change the way scholars explore the dungeon. The icons at the top of the zones are the zone effects. When he enters the zone, you must check for the effects of any of the activations starting in order from left to right. Passive effects are found with square icons without arrows on them. Incoming effects show the 4 converging arrows. So we're seeing these are just staggered. They're going to always be in there. These have incoming, so if you enter there, you're going to do that effect. Outgoing effects show a circular icon with 4 diverging arrows going outwards. So, we have this one showing you're leaving the area. Makes it very simple. Then color effects. Effects may have color backgrounds. Can only be activated as colors have at least 1 cube of their selected color. So, yeah, see if I have any of those I can look at really quickly. So, we do have some of these, like this tent. You have to have a yellow cube to use that tent. This one has a green one, for example. So a couple of different effects there. So, an example here is enter zone containing 3 effects. First, the 4 red converging arrows are the entry effect, which activates every time a scholar enters. The effect is ambush 1. Sophia takes 1 stun token. She can sacrifice a student to avoid it. After resolving the first effect, she checks the second danger 2. A passive effect will activate only certain conditions. In this case, she fails a stealth or scholar test. And then she moves to the third effect, which is another entry effect, must deal with the boss effect. It's very interesting. Triggers some different stuff. And this kind of lists what some of that other stuff does. I'm not going to go over all of it in here, but we got the idea. Then we have the panic card. We have maximum alert. We have sucked and panic cards we showed. We had 3 different ones. Just basically make the game more interesting, making the last turn of each game always different and insanely dangerous. So here we're going to have some different information. Dungeon requirement indicates the cards to be included in the pack deck only when the same symbol is used. So some of them, doesn't matter. Some can only be used with a fawn deck. Some can only be used with Lacus. Instructions for filling out the university. When the cards revealed, these instructions are used to fill the university bag. So you're going to have a different number of cards in there, or a different number of meeples in there for your students and stuff, which are going to make the game a little bit trickier. And then we have alert modifiers applied to the alert zone of all values. So if we're playing with this one, darkness, for example, empty university badge, and you're going to add 2 of these guys per player, and then 1 infinite. So you're not going to have everything. Beginning of the game, each player's turn, including the player's finish, their turn must randomize if the result is worship, riches, or cascade, the different colors. They must remove all information cubes of a color of their choice from all zones. So that's going to make that kind of a pain. At the end of the game, each player's turn, the scholars isn't in the starting zone, and is the only one present in the zone. They randomize and lose the information cubes. So it's kind of like you're getting... You need to kind of play it safer on there. And you have a 4 thing. We have just some other ones. So, just have some other different stuff you're going to do. And then some different stuff for the boss card. But they're kind of end game type stuff. So these rules replace the end of the game. So, the maximum alert game starts to trigger when one of the following events occurs. The first thesis is submitted, no mega students drawing, there are no more free places. So these don't consist the entire game. This is when your game gets to the end, instead of just having to draw until you run out of mega students, you're going to instead replace stuff and do these extra effects. It's kind of penalizing people or changes at the end of the game, which is interesting. Like, right, if you get to the end of the game, you also have to worry about losing a bunch of cubes if you're not back to the starting zone. Can definitely change how you play the game. Says remove the alert card from the game, put all Mega students in the reserve, reel the panic card, completely empty the bag, placing all students obtained in the reserve. The following instructions fill the university with the panic card. So they're going to do some, just fill them up with different stuff. They're going to have different extra effects you're going to have to do. The game ends if there are no more information cubes in the dungeon. A Mega student is drawn from the bag and is empty before having to put students back in. All scholars of the dungeon are unable to play, or all scholars submit thesis. So it just makes the end game, instead of just being, I submitted my thesis, everyone else has 2 or 3 more turns until the end of the game. And they have to try and submit theirs. You're going to add an extra little bonus gimmick to the game. So very cool. And then we have main effects for our cards. We haven't looked at yet. Main effects of trick cards. All scholars use them wisely to do the unthinkable. These effects are text shown in the center of each trick card. They bring the game tactical and complexity level recommended for experienced players. Now, I do that's one thing that's cool about the way this updated instruction book is that, again, you're taking out all these other modifiers of the game and just worry about how to do the stealth test and steal cubes, and then you can add these other things in a little bit as you'd like to go. If you never want to play with the boss, never play with the boss. You find the panic cards too hard, never use panic cards. But you have these options at least. Unit rule, trick cards become available to be used in place of auxiliary effects or bonus values when playing a card. There is no limit to the number of effect cards player can use during a turn. Other effects of the cards when played is not possible with a new trick card or scholar skill until the effect is completely resolved. Trick cards can only be used for one of its effects, either a bonus value, the main effect, or the auxiliary effect. So if I grab not this card, let's grab a regular card here. So if I have Quick Step, I can use it for its 2, what's it called again? Bonus value up here at the top. I can use it for its main effect, or I can use it for one of its 2 auxiliary effects at quick speed even. But yeah, you only get to do one or the others. You don't get to use all of them. 2 players want to play a trick card at the same time. Current player has priority. Check if the effect is an action. Preceded by the word action. If the effect can only be played in the action phase and will constitute an action. So some of them can only be used at certain times. It'll literally say action in there, like we saw in this card. Some won't say action, so they can be used at different times. D is the cost, so the cost must be paid to activate the card. So here you have to sacrifice a student or draw a student from the bag. Here you have sacrifice a student. So there are going to sometimes be penalties to doing some of that stuff. Usually it's going to be sacrificing a student, which isn't too bad, just to make you draw 3. Sacrifice or get a stun token. Drawing from the bag is never a good thing, because then it's always risk of getting that thing. Unless you're at your thesis, then you're ready to do your thesis. That might not be a bad thing. Check the timings. We have standard, instant, reaction, declare the effects, pay the cost, resolve the effect, do as much as you can do during different parts of the effects. And then we have some zone effect tokens. Some trick cards make it possible to place the dungeon zones. Some tokens can add new stuff into the game. So you can add like secret passages, teleports, traps. We also can get in-turn cards from them. In-turn cards represent improved versions of the students. Some trick cards allow scholars to obtain in-turn. When a scholar plays one of those cards, he'll get the corresponding in-card is made up of a name, endgame bonus points, and its effect. When a scholar acquires an in-turn, they keep it next to the noteboard, allowing the owner of the player gets the benefits of indicated card, as well as getting the bonus points at the end of the game. Scholars must, however, pay attention to the loyalty of their interns. In fact, there's only 1 copy of each intern. The first scholar to play the relevant trick card gets the intern as described above. If during the game, other scholars play the same trick card, they'll steal the intern from the current owner. and have protected information cubes. The colored shields on some of the inkers indicate the information cube of that color is protected. When the protected cube is a target of effect would cause it or to lose, it may decide not to lose it. Protection cannot be used. The reverse effect would cause information to be given to another student. So it doesn't keep you from giving them. It just keeps them from being lost somehow. So if they get stolen, if you're espionage or stealing, you have to give them one of your tokens, I think. So yeah, that's the basis of the game. So we kind of went through everything. I don't think the original... So just kind of skimming through the original rulebook, like, as a comparison. It does some really neat stuff in here when I don't want to, like, discount it, because it does kind of show some little extra things on the board. It's not bad to look at. Explaining the setup a little bit better, so don't just discount the original rulebook. Showing you to play all your characters down there. Put the number in there. 4 per player, plus 1, reg 1. The reserve. All the materials not in player and the reserve. Some of the effects reserve reference them. Does some big pictures showing off some of the other things, explaining the symbols a little bit nicer. So it's definitely a good thing to use. Learning the game. It's nothing about ever. The original book didn't teach you how to use the game, but it just did stuff like it threw all the trick cards in there all at once. It explained how to do everything. And it's just assuming, starting from the game, you're using every part of that trick card right off the bat, which, and it kind of explains a little bit more about each one does, which is not a bad thing either. Just, again, if you want to play a little bit easier, look at the Kickstarter box set instructions to kind of just learn what to do. Or if you kind of have, like, looked at that, you can kind of just say, okay, I can kind of skip some of this stuff. But this does do a good job of explaining a lot of these different things as well, going through each one. Shows all the pictures in there. Zone glossary, showing, like, we have the Fawn Woods, the Gaia Sanctuary, Primeval's Domain. Explaining what some of them are. Explaining what the different cubes mean, kind of how many you have of each. What the definitions are. So it's definitely a good book as well. This is very helpful. That's what we were kind of talking about before. So each one says how many more it ups it. Espionage, trick zone, so it kind of goes through that. So really the only thing it's added in here so far is just explaining full trick cards. Does have an interesting thing here in stealth versus stealth test, showing some of the different things you can do. Versus this versus that, sight versus stealth, how espionage works. Kind of gives you a little visual guide versus just saying numbers like the other book did. Examples of losing stuff, we just kind of talked about that. After removal through any means, information cube, stolen, eliminated, or lost. Dropped, eliminated, but the giving is a different action, something might tell you to give. So it does kind of break into some of that, and then talks about them in-turn cards there. That gets down to the end of the game. References the panic cards. So if you want to know a little bit more about that. Maximum alert. And that's to kind of talk about all the bosses and stuff. So it does get into this as well. It just, it's just kind of nice in the other book. It kind of represents it as being an extra thing to do. Here it kind of goes a little bit more about the university stuff at the end of the game. Talks about more of each of the characters as well as their abilities, which is always fun. And also gives a little explanations for each of the different zones, which is also a really cool idea. So if you kind of want to know which one's what or what happened in each. So that's what we have for Dungeonology, the Expedition. I know this is a super long video. We went through a lot of information. But hopefully at least have an understanding, if you've watched all of this, understanding of how to play the game. Granted, it's not, like I said, not a full sit-down walkthrough step-by-step, but at least you understand if you see a card as you're watching through the rest of the videos and the expansions, you're going to have an idea of what each one does. So in the next, probably 1 to 2 videos for this core set, we're going to go over all the different cards and all the different characters. I might do, like, the trick cards, And some of the character cards, I might try and see if I can do them all in one video. They might get broke up into two, just because there's so much information on each card. So I might do trick cards in a separate video from everything else, just to break this down a little bit more. And then we'll hit into the expansions and stuff. Hope to see you guys there. Bye.